I ran out of Dr. Pepper last week because someone drank it all. It was me. And now we're drinking coffee, which is just as good. I don't know where the sun's at. Oh, it's in my eyes. But it's time for us to start paint prep on the Supra, which means we're starting from the front of the cart and working our way to the back. So what is this gonna look like? We are going to start by removing the Plasti dip off the hood and off of the headlights. Now, those of you watching that have an above average intelligence may kind of realize the fact that, well, the front bumper is actually the front of the car and not the hood. So why aren't you starting with the front bumper? Well, there's only one specific reason, and it's not even that good of a reason, but it's a reason nonetheless. I've been promising to take my friend for a drive in this car for the past 2 months, and it hasn't happened. And so it's gonna happen tonight, which means I need the front bumper on because taking off the front tray and all that would just be way too much of a hassle to try to get it done by the end of the day today. So we're leaving that on, and we're gonna start with the hood. But in order to do that, we're going to need to take the Supra, turn it around, bring it down to the driveway, and then we're also going to do the headlights as well. So we're gonna start by pulling out the headlights, the flares, everything on the front that needs to be taken off, including the front bumper, so that way we could then strip the paint off and get it ready to prime. Let's just appreciate the blue for a second. It looks so nice all being one color. At this point, we need to take a few things off. So we need to take off the windshield wiper cleaners, the trim, the signal lights, jack the car up, front splitter, nose cowl, all this stuff off. So that way we are completely bare and ready to just start sanding away at everything. So let's start by getting the car jacked up and getting the splitter and front bumper off. I got the front bumper remounted on the car now, so I kind of like the way this is looking out here. Got my whole Supra right down there and the front bumper on top. That's a funny joke because I'm saying the Supra is trash. So with essentially the entire front removed, we're good to start sanding now. We have one more step though, and it's a really quick one, just a preparation one, and it does have to deal with the front bumper. We are going to throw another layer of paint stripper on top of it. Months back, we did the same thing, and we got a bunch of the Plasti dip off, but let me show you up close to show you the areas that didn't quite come off. All across, we have so much black that just didn't come off, largely due to the fact that this whole paint, well, the clear coat specifically, is completely cracked and come off. What happens most likely is that through the 30 years of hot dry plus, this bumper flexes quite a lot. It's hard to show, but it moves a lot, which easily would cause the paint to become brittle and crack. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw another layer of paint stripper on, and since now I have a really nice pressure washer, we're going to be able to blast everything off. I didn't have my pressure washer at the time, so I wasn't able to do it then, but now that we have the opportunity to, we're going to do it now. So we're gonna put some paint stripper on the front bumper, let it sit, and then begin to sand down the entire front half of the car with 220 grit sandpaper, so then we could throw a guide coat of paint on, fill it, and get it perfectly smooth. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some sanding time lapse. Starting to think I might need to rinse the driveway off again. Someone got it dusty. We have finished round 1 of sanding, so let me catch you up with where we're at because it actually went a lot better than I was anticipating. Also, by the way, this is the first time I've ever used like a machine sander to sand things, so let me tell you what. Oh wow, that's a lot easier than hand sanding, so that was awesome. For the hood and fenders, I used 220 grit sandpaper. When talking to other bodywork guys, they recommend going 600 to 800 if you're just trying to scuff the paint, but for myself, I needed to try to eliminate a lot of spider web and crow's feet cracks on the top of the paint. Essentially, as with the front bumper, the paint just heated and cooled so many times that it eventually just started to crack the clear coat. So we needed to sand that down smooth. Now the tough part about having a car with lighter color is that it's a little harder to tell exactly how many of those little cracks are left. So what we're going to do next is we are going to cover the hood and the fenders in a high build primer. This way we'll be able to not only more clearly see where the cracks are, but we'll be able to sand down this primer so that way that primer itself will be what fills in the cracks. So it'll save us some steps in body work having to lay filler or pinhole filler. So this should save us some time as well as exploit everything that needs to be more seriously addressed. Speaking of more seriously addressed, this front bumper and the nose cowl as well, I used anywhere between 40 and 80 grit sandpaper. As you obviously notice, I took off the paint all the way down to the fiberglass all along the front and the bottom lip because those were the two areas that had rock chips all over the place, not to mention the corners of the front bumper were completely cracked and shredded out, so I needed to sand this all the way back down to the fiberglass. Now admittedly, this is where I'm going to start straying into an area of my unknown because I know how to work with fiberglass, like hard fiberglass and metal, where it's easy to just use body filler and pinhole filler and fill that over, and then you high build prime it, sand it, and it's smooth and you're good to go. But this is a little bit different type of fiberglass. So let me tell you my plan. And honestly, if you know bodywork and you say, hey, you're on the right path, keep going, or hey, you messed this up, you need to try again, or have some alternative suggestions, please let me know in the comments because I learned so much from you guys, so I really need the help and would appreciate it. I mean, as I mentioned before, this is my first time painting a car legitimately, so I could use some help and advice. So going back to the front bumper, when you look really close, there are areas like this on the corner that need to be filled, and I'm just gonna use a super thin layer of body filler that should be able to fill those in just fine, but I'm not gonna do it yet. I want to lay a layer of high build primer over top. Now my reasoning behind this is high build primer will cover over the more soft spongy type of fiberglass here, and then I could sand that high build primer down, and then after a few more layers it'll be as smooth as a normal painting surface would be, like a hard fiberglass or metal. After the first layer of body filler though, I am going to fill in those gaps and it'll expose other areas along the bottom or wherever else that may need gaps filled in. The same exact situation goes for the nose cowl as well. I sanded this one down pretty decently, but at the same time I just wasn't seeing anything come off with the sandpaper, so it was hard to tell exactly what needs attention the most. So this one will definitely get a good high build primer layer over top, and then we'll more confidently address from there what needs to be fixed. So to go over the plan one more time so we're all on the same page, we're going to prime the hood and the fenders of the car, prime the front bumper, and prime the nose cowl, and then we'll catch back up and readdress everything and every little nick that exposed itself in the high build primer process. Alright, everything has been primed right now, so we have everything here, obviously on the car, and then the front bumper and shenanigans stuff in the back. So we're gonna give it a bit to dry, probably about an hour, and then we'll come back and evaluate everything about where we're at.
1 hour later.
Alright, so some time has passed, everything is all dried up, and we are looking really good on the front end of the car. The hood is smooth, there's no dents, which is nice. We're just gonna have to hit this again with probably around 800 grit sandpaper to smooth out the primer. Same for the fenders, but aside from that, everything is looking really good. The only place that needs even a little bit of filler is the tiny corner on here. I mean, you can't even see it. It's not even, it's maybe visible on camera right in the very center. It needs to be filled ever so slightly. It's honestly about as good as we could ask for, but the front bumper, that's gonna need a little more work, but not too much hopefully. So it's actually looking pretty smooth, which is the good part. Although we are gonna sand this down with 800 just like we're doing the car, and then go over this part again, because as I mentioned, I just don't know if this is gonna bleed through, so I wanna make sure this is smooth. I think I'd also mentioned before that, but we We have a small little scuff to fill in here on the side. This shouldn't be too bad. Should really only take one layer of filler. That's it. Maybe even just glazing putty, but that shouldn't be an issue. It does need to get gone over again because this part got a little scuffed up. And then in the front vents in the center, it just needs some going over where things just were a little rough. Most of it is not going to be visible anyway because it's going to be so far back or on the underside of things, but it's worth going over again while we have the front bumper off. The front cowl is pretty much the exact same story as the front bumper. Everything is fine really. It needs to be gone over one more time. And then right here in the center, we have some nicks that need to be filled in with filler. So our plan now is we're going to use pinhole filler to fill in the front bumper, those cracks that need to be addressed, and then for the actual hood itself, we're going to wet sand it down to 800 grit with a block sand to make sure that it becomes perfectly smooth, so that way we are set to go when it's time to actually paint the car itself. So starting with the front bumper, going to the hood and the fenders, you guys will see everything that's happening. Sometimes I wonder if I had learned to do all my minor things with my left hand, like sanding and throwing and stuff. I wonder how strong it would actually be. But in the meantime, my right wrist is very sore because that's the one I've been using to sand for the past 20 years. As in like last day, but you know, same thing. So the hood is in really good condition right now. We finished wet sanding it. It's smooth to the point where only the little dent on the far corner that needed to be filled is the area that needs to be addressed. Other than that, the hood and the front fenders are fine. It's just this one little corner right here that needed a little bit of smoothing out, and that's really it. I also finished sanding down the front cowl, so that should be good for another layer of primer, so we could see if that next layer of primer is going to be it or if we're going to need a third one. So it looks like we're going to need one more layer of filler on there, and then we're going to sand that down, prime it, and then sand the whole thing one last time to see how smooth we're actually going to be. Now I want to catch you up on the flare work as well, because as I mentioned in the last video, I'm doing the touch-up work right now, and in addition, I mentioned this months ago, but I only work on half of the car at a time, so that way I could work on the other half on my own time, so that way I can keep the enjoyment for working on cars without feeling like I have to make a video out of it. So let me catch you up on where we are in the flares as well. We're not really going to show any of this in this episode, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So this is the side of the car that we worked on last time, and as you can see, there's just minor things that are being filled right here. In fact, most of this filler is just extra. There's just tiny holes that needed to be filled in, so that's all we're doing here. The other front flare, that one's pretty much done already. And then on the driver's side of the car, which is the side we didn't work on in the video, that's coming along really smoothly. I laid the first layer of filler and it went well, and then we're laying our second thinner layer of filler right now, and it's the same for the rear flare as well. Those are coming along well. The front half of the car that we're sanding is coming along well, so what we're going to do next is we're going to throw fillers on the areas that need fillers, prime everything, so the next time we meet up, everything should be completely primed. So fill, prime, let's get to it. Got my work clothes on today, so we're looking fancy, but we're pretty much done. It is genuinely weird to see the front of the car mostly all one color. Now, of course, the wet sanding of the hood makes it look a little funny, but I mean, it's all black, which is pretty cool. Not that that's the final color we're going for, but still, you understand my point. So, what did we do in this episode? Well, we took the plastic dip off the hood and the headlights. I should go get those on. There, that's more gooder. But we took the plastic dip off the hood, the headlights, and then sanded down everything there, including the front bumper, and now it's all near ready for paint. So, I even threw the flares back on to show you guys what they look like on the car, and it is looking pretty good. Absolutely loving the fact that the trim now lines up with the rest of the car. This was a really good start to the paint prep process. I really nailed that alliteration. And it'll be even better as we continue to move along with the rest of the car. In the next video, we're going to be addressing the doors and the roof, and I'm not sure how far back of the car we're going to get, but we won't be touching the trunk and the rear bumper, but we should get the rest of the middle of the car done, so soon enough the entire car will be in a primer black. Meanwhile, off camera, I've made good progress in preparing the paint booth setup, so that's being all done behind the scenes, and when it's time to actually paint a car, you'll see it then, but I've cleared out a lot of space. I've gotten some plastic for it. I just need to hang it up and then finish plumbing, or even start plumbing, the hosing system for the paint, and then as soon as that's done, we're immediately going to prepping the Miata for paint. But this is it for the Supra so far, and it's the end of the episode. Thank you guys for watching. Please check out the link down below to philsupra.com if you want to check out some merch to possibly buy yourselves. I appreciate you guys for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Adios.